good morning. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sasha. It's time for another I Just Woke Up and We're Doing a Book Review. Before we get started, I'm gonna quickly jump into a word from today's video sponsor. Hey there friends, it's me, Sasha, and today's sponsor is my Etsy shop, Dreaming of Stars Co. Have you ever wished you could match the vibe of your favorite book to a bookmark? Have you ever started reading a book but wanted to take a break and realized there was nothing close by except the last receipt from your library to use to hold your place? Hey, we're here to listen. We don't judge. Whether it's dark romance, queer, indie, fantasy, sci-fi, nonfiction, we've got bookmark designs just for you. And when I say we, it's really just me, but the we makes it sound, official or something. All my bookmarks are made right here in this very room by me, myself, Sasha Marie. You can use code WELCOME10 on your first order for a discount. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Okay friends, time for the review. I recently read So Let Them Burn by Camilla Cole. Before I even talk about this book, I want to set the stage. I read this in January going into February. Or did I only start it in February? Regardless, here's the context. January and so far February have been a bad time. I've been extremely depressed, anxious, all the things, mental health. Yeah, it's not been going really well over here. For various reasons I'm sure you can assume if you pay attention even a little bit. So that definitely affected me and has affected me as I've been reading. So I think my overall impression of this book would be different if I was happier. If I was having a better time in life, I would have maybe had a better time with this book. That's not to say that I didn't like it. That's not to say that I'm not going to recommend it to you. But instead of being like a gushing review where I'm just like telling you all of these wonderful things, I might be a little more reserved, a little more toned down, and that's not the book's fault. That is my fault. So I'm going to try and go into this review knowing that under different circumstances I probably would have had a different experience. This is a young adult fantasy story about mainly two sisters. One is Farron. She has been blessed by the gods when she was 12 years old. There are 3 gods that they know of in this world and that they pray to, and Farron was sent on a quest to retrieve a queen who was now orphaned and whose parents had sort of put her up for adoption with these farmers so that she wouldn't be raised in nobility as royalty. She would be raised outside of the life because they were occupied by this other country that was enslaving them and killing them, and obviously the queens had a big target on their back and they didn't want their daughter to be targeted as well, so they sent her away for her own safety. Farron is sent to retrieve the new queen because her mothers have been killed, and so now it's her job to rule the country, pretty much. Farron's sister is 1 year older than her, 2 years older than her. Her name is Alara, I think, if I'm pronouncing it right. And together, these 3 teenaged girls, literally, are commanding and battling a war against their colonizers, and they do end up winning. And so this book starts like 5 or 6 years after that war. Everyone, every citizen, these 3 teenage girls who are still teenage girls, all have a lot of PTSD from the things that they experienced, especially in childhood. And our story sort of starts with the first coming together of the kingdoms that had colonized them, with talks of peace treaties, with talks of beginning trade negotiations, things like that. So, in this story, I think of it as a little island, but I don't know that that's factually correct. I think there is a map in here. Maybe. There is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're this island down here, and then this big thing is the thing that colonized them. I don't know if you could see that at all. Anyway, their little island don't have dragons, but they have built these airplanes that are essentially like the the human-built contraption counterpart to a dragon. The Conquering, the colonizers, they all have dragons, and they each have 2 dragon riders. And it's very important that they have 2 because that is how the dragons remain under control and do what the humans want them to do. So, when we begin our story, none of our characters have any dragons. The sort of inciting incident is that Farron's sister, when the peace talks are happening, happens upon a dragon rider and the dragon out in the garden where they should not be. And the dragon bonds to Alara. And there we go, off we go. The whole story has begun. There is one other sort of main character whose name is Reeve, and he is the son of the colonizing king, or I think he's a king. I don't know what his title is technically, but so the whole time you're supposed to mistrust this character as the reader, but he's become best friends with Alara in the 5 or 6 years that he's been living on the island, because he went against his family and his kingdom and his people to try and save this island of people. And so he's despised by his own country, he's despised by their island. He just has a really hard time, and as the reader, you're not ever really supposed to trust him as a character and as a person, which sort of leads into this big sort of reveal at the end. So as we're moving through the book, we learn more and more about the history of dragons. We learn that there was the first dragon rider ever, who has sort of become immortalized as the 4th and missing god. And as I mentioned, Farron can communicate with gods. Wouldn't you know it, she potentially has a link to this missing god. And Farron says multiple times throughout the book that she has been a liar longer than she's been a saint. And that is kind of her just personality trait, is she can lie her way out of anything, she can lie her way into anything. And it's a very cocky and a little self-serving attitude that did rub me the wrong way a few times. In the beginning, I was cheering for that and okay, there's this teenage girl who has insurmountable power because of these gods, so yeah, she would feel some type of way about that, and that she was all these things before the gods came to her anyway, so her personality just sort of magnified under their presence. So Alara, on the other hand, is the very self-righteous sister. She's always trying to do the right thing. She's trying to protect everyone. And that's not to say that Farron isn't also trying to protect everyone. But Alara is very much has some hints of jealousy towards her sister and the fact that she doesn't get the same recognition. And she wants to carve her own name for herself in any way possible. I guess I was really excited in the story for about 50% of it, and then I'm gonna put it up here so you can just see it the whole time. I'd say 50% of it, I was into it, I was excited because it was new stuff happening, and then towards the middle section, it just got a little bit repetitive. We would switch POVs between Farron and Alara. So Farron stays on the island with Reeve. They are tasked with research and figuring out how to break Alara's dragon bond, because the gods think the only way to make all of this better is to kill all the dragons and to just start clean, fresh slate. But if they kill the dragons, she kills her sister too. Then on the other side, Alara is taken into the mainland where all of the colonizers are, and she's put into dragon training school essentially. I thought this was a chance to have some really cool, exciting things happen, and it was kind of boring. All of Alara's chapters while she's over there, with the exception of 1 or 2 times where some action is happening, it's just she's in school, she's getting mercilessly bullied and racist comments and horrible treatment from all of the other students and even the staff. And obviously that's what you would expect when someone from the island is has been taken into the colonizers' area. Like, obviously they're not going to treat her well. I hate that it happened, and I hated reading about it, but that obviously just, like, lines up with what would happen. I don't know if I'm explaining any of this well. So I think from, like, the middle of the book until we got to the end, I probably read, I think I had 100 pages left before I started skimming to just get to the ending, because I had had an idea of what was going to happen for a while. For like 70% of the book, I had already, by the time I was like 30% in, I kind of guessed what the ending would be. And I got pretty close. So I was just trying to skim to see what the outcome would be and everything. I think my main point that I'm ineloquently trying to say is the book lost a little bit of momentum in the beginning. And then as we got to the last like 15 to 20% of the book, it explodes in momentum and everything is like going wrong and going crazy, but it already lost my attention. So it was really hard to get it back at that point. Instead of sucking me back in and getting me reinvested in the story, I was just like, that we could have done with some of this energy in the middle and like spread throughout. But overall, I thought this was an interesting concept. I did enjoy the book. I did enjoy the writing of the book. I thought each character was really fleshed out and definitely its own like full-bodied person. There was never a time where I was like, I don't know whose point of view I'm in. I don't know who's talking right now, because each character was just so distinctly themselves and had their own voices. I did like the concept of this novel as well. I just think if it hadn't lost the momentum in the middle, I would have had a better time with it, and I would have definitely had a better time if I hadn't been already so, like, depressed. So that didn't help me to, like, keep my interest, because I was having trouble doing anything with interest, if that makes sense. So I would be very curious to hear your thoughts on this book. I guess the one other thing I want to comment on is the fourth god, who's the first dragon rider, does end up coming into Farron's life. And Farron at this point, I think, is said to be like 16, maybe 17. And this god is like hundreds, if not thousands of years old, but he comes to her in the form of a boy. And she starts to have feelings for him. And it seems like they're reciprocated, but it's like hard to know if he's just manipulating her, using her feelings for him. That entire concept gives me a huge ick. Like, we should not have teenagers feeling attraction to like really old men, and if they do have that attraction, it definitely should not at all be reciprocated. If anything, it reminds me of Leigh Bardugo's series Shadow and Bone with the Darkling. This bad guy in this book very much gives like Darkling energy, but I don't know which one I find creepier, to be honest, but if the whole intent was for the audience to be like, this is alarm bells, this is bad, it worked because I never for 1 second was happy that this like 100 to 1,000-year-old god is sort of like flirting with this teenage girl who he can talk to and communicate with and teach. I was never like, oh, fun. I was like, ew, I don't like it. So that was another thing that was sort of like, once that really started happening, I was like, what are we doing here? What is happening? The other thing I want to mention is there's great representation in this book. Obviously, all of our characters except for Reeve and the people of the main continent are people of color. They all are black. And Reeve is described as being like a white redhead, sticks out everywhere he goes. Also great representation for queer LGBTQ plus characters. The two queens obviously were a sapphic coupling who we don't get to see in the book. They're just discussed posthumously. I don't know. You know what word I mean. And then Alara is also queer, which is Farron's sister. Farron sort of discusses potentially being Ace a little bit, which is another thing where it was weird for me to be like, she like talks about, and Alara talks about how Farron doesn't have interest in anybody, and then all of a sudden we get to this book and she has interest in 2 people all of a sudden. So that was a little, I don't know if that's how it works. Maybe that is how, I'm not Ace, so I don't know, and I don't know enough about it. But my understanding of it is that that's not how it works. But I would have to look into it more. So that was just, that's another thing of representation that is there, but it felt a little strange to me. But maybe, again, it just felt so strange because I was so turned off by 1/3 of the triangle that was happening, and I was like, I don't like it. I don't know. Anyway, I recommend this book for people who like young adult fantasy, for people who want to read stories of people who look and sound like them, and stories of people who are grappling with post-colonization and how to rebuild your community after something like that happens, and how deeply those wounds will infiltrate for generations. There's a lot of great discussion points within this book, and overall, I think it was a good read. I just think I picked it up at the wrong time in my life personally, which is a bummer. So I'm not saying that this is a negative review. I'm just saying my experience with the book wasn't what I wish it would have been. And I still think you should give it a try. If you like young adult fantasy, if you like dragons, it's a lot of political stuff happening. It's a lot of just, grappling with colonization, like I mentioned, and war and all sorts of things. So I guess I'm gonna stop yapping. I think I've gotten the point across, hopefully. I don't know. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you read this book, it's a duology. The second book should be out by the time you're seeing this. Please let me know what you thought about it. Leave me a comment down below. I've heard the second book is better. So potentially, if I'm feeling better, I might reread this one and then read the second one. We'll have to see what happens. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!